Vetro Vero's studio is located in an old dairy creamery in southern Pennsylvania. Owned and operated by Michael Schunke and Josie Gluck. Today we'll watch the team make one of their Tall Simpatico vases. They start by gathering a little colored glass out of the color warming oven, heating it and dropping it over a clear bubble. The process is called a color overlay, but Michael has a little extra twist. He'll pull that little pom-pom off the top of the hat and stretch it and then break it free in hopes of removing any small bubbles that came along for the ride. Using the steel table, they'll roll that color back till it's completely covered the clear bubble, and then go into the furnace and gather more clear glass over the top.
Stop.
Josie's using a wet newspaper to narrow the bubble up, and then she gave it back to Michael, who will take one more gather of clear glass. The glass in the furnace is 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and that furnace is running 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Michael let some of the glass drip off the end. It's called stripping the gather. As he did so, he noticed a small air bubble that was trapped in the gather.
Why don't you give me a big beer hanging up?
Michael doesn't want that air bubble in there, so he's preparing to pull it and trim it out. Picking bubbles is one of the more challenging things to learn about blowing glass. Michael will use the tweezers to separate the top layer of glass, and then go in and pinch and pull the bubble out. Using the shears, he's snipped the bubble out of the glass, and they'll use the torch to heat it and eventually smooth it down.
Heaven on earth, baby, heaven on earth.
The steel table is one of the main places we shape the glass, and we love to use it to cool the glass. Working with a wet newspaper cools the glass much less. Before the bubble gets too far along, it's time to cut the neckline. This is where the bubble will break off the blowpipe, and where a new bubble will eventually be attached. Again, Michael uses the wet newspaper to shape and asks Josie to blow through the pipe to inflate the bubble. They'll continue to heat and stretch and shape until the bubble becomes the desired size.
Blow. Stop.
Once the bubble is the desired width, it's time to flatten the bottom. You see Josie blowing through that section of surgical tubing. It's attached to the end of the blowpipe. She's blowing the bubble out into the corner so they can get a nice crisp edge. With the bottom established, the next step is to make the punty. This new rod will support the weight of this bubble and a new bubble attached onto the top.
That triggers the copyright.
Yeah.
Michael attaches the punty into the very center of the bottom of the piece. It needs to be on there well enough to support this bubble and the next one, but also needs to break off easily when the piece is complete. With a light tap, the bubble is broken free.
And then I realized he was talking about blowing all of me.
Michael wants to trim the end of the bubble that just broke off the pipe. This bubble has to match up to the opening of another bubble that's already been made. Josie's using the wooden paddle and Michael the metal jacks to get a nice crisp edge on the top of the piece. This bubble will now sit on hold for a while Josie torches the punty to keep it warm. Michael's making up a new punty. This one is going to be used to grab the other bubble that they made earlier. This one's a little different than the last. It's called a crown punty. Michael will roll the glass in such a way that he creates a flange off the end of the rod. They'll then hustle back on over to the bench and, working quickly with the tweezers, pinch the end of the flange down. We think it looks a little like a crown, and so we call it a crown punty. They'll use the crown punty to pick up that upper section that's been staying warm in the color box at about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This punty is the handle that they'll use to put this small section of glass onto the larger one. Both the bubbles will become one. Each end needs to be the same size as well as the same circumference.
Down, Josie.
They only have one chance to get everything right.
A little better. Much.
You'll notice there's that band of clear glass with gold in the center of it.
Okay.
We missed that on this video, but you can see it in the short Simpatico video. The next step is to inflate the bubble up into its final form.
Stop.
Josie's using the soffietto, which means a little wind or a little breeze, to inflate the bubble up as Michael continues to shape from the outside. Once the shoulder and the neckline are established, the next step is to grab with the tweezers and stretch and trim the lip down.
Now we gotta deal with.
I can probably go a little smaller.
Working towards a graceful curve at the very end. Michael flashes the whole thing, gets a little extra heat in the top, and then using the jacks, will start to flare the lip out.
Just sitting here doing time.
Once everything is just so, it's time to take the piece over to the knockoff station. Tap the punty to break it free, and then using the oxypropane torch, melt in the break-off area so there's no sharp edges. Michael will use the Kevlar gloves to grab the piece and place it into the annealing oven. It'll sit here with everything they made today and cool down slowly overnight. On the day that I visited Michael and Josie, they made 4 Simpatico vases. Vetro Vero, Michael Schunke, and Josie Gluck. I'm G-Man on Fire. Thanks for watching.